Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and my guest today is pure Burlingame royalty. He is a native of Burlingame, having attended St. Catherine's Catholic Elementary School, Burlingame High School, and eventually graduating from Sac State and ready to begin his 10th year teaching at Mercy High School, the all-girls Catholic high school here in Burlingame. His great-grandfather, Archie Leonard Offield, was Burlingame's first doctor. My guest today, Ryan Offield, known to all as Mr. O. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much for asking.
So, Mr. O, in the introduction, I used Offield and then I used Offield. What's it going to be today?
We can go with Offield these days. Offield is certainly no offense taken.
Okay. How did that all happen?
So my parents used to make a light joke about this back and forth. It was kind of like an undercurrent in the household that would be the more gentle of ribbing between mom and dad. Mom had the stronger personality, arguably, and so when I was a kid, it was Offield because mom was loud.
Right.
And dad was a little more passive, and he would kind of gently, joke back that it was Offield. And finally, in my 20s, I kind of said to myself, maybe my dad knows how to pronounce his name. So. I started introducing myself as Offield, but that kind of threw off the older people from my life. So Offield still flies.
Do you use Offield at school?
Offield at school,
but
yeah.
Mostly, you go by Mr. O at Mercy?
That kind of faded away. It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't even bother me if the kids call me Ryan in most cases. But
okay.
I like the informality, but most kids call me Mr. Offield these days. That's just kind of how it evolved.
Great.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were here at the library?
Tutoring, probably 6 months ago, maybe a little bit less. Tutoring in the spring semester.
Good answer, Ryan. Good. You're going to walk out of here today a lot smarter.
I can tell.
Okay. Ryan, let's see what I have here. I have Archie Leonard Offield, Archie Leonard Offield II, Archie Leonard Offield the third, which would have been your dad. So that would have lined you up to be Archie Leonard Offield the fourth. What happened?
If I understand correctly, I think it was my mom who was not having the fourth, which probably saved me some childhood trauma from students, classmates. But it's my dad did want to keep the name going on somehow. And if you knew my dad, as I know you did more than almost anybody, he kept things a bit light-hearted. Levity was always on his mind.
Right.
So he decided to squeeze in the Archie name with my middle name, but not going with straight Archie. He decided to make my name an acronym, ALDO, Archie Leonard Duffy Offield. So I'm Aldo.
You're Aldo.
Yeah.
That's where that came from. I think that's a great story. Wow. All right. So great-grandfather, Archie Leonard Offield, Dr. Offield, Burlingame's first doctor. How'd that come about?
Well, I don't exactly know what sent him to Burlingame from San Francisco, but the answer to your question is he was born in Oregon City, which I understand was called New Era back then, and he moved down to San Francisco around 1904, got married in San Francisco in 1908, and shortly after that came to Burlingame. And one of the really cool things about you doing this podcast was it got me asking questions I didn't think to ask. I knew some things, had ideas about others, but what occurred to me was when I started looking up the years. So he was a doctor for 2 years in San Francisco when the earthquake hit. And so just imagining his role when the fires broke out, when the chaos was there, I can't imagine he did nothing. I don't have any stories. I don't know any details, but I know, he probably would have felt some pressure and probably would have been involved with some, extreme scenarios. So that was kind of interesting to imagine. Fun might be a dark word, but, to picture that was kind of interesting.
I would imagine he was one busy doctor.
Yeah, I would think so.
Where did he live when he came down here?
Lived on Burlingame Avenue, 1210. And he had a house built there. And not too long after that, and I don't know what inspired this, but he had the whole house picked up and moved over to Douglas, about 2 blocks north, give or take.
So wait a minute. The house was on 12, did you say 1210 Burlingame Ave?
1210 Burlingame Ave.
And then he had the home picked up and moved over to where?
Douglas Avenue, and I forget the address.
Douglas.
Yeah, 1100 Douglas.
I didn't even know they did those things back then. Okay, so now you have an empty spot. What happened?
they went ahead and had a building commissioned. They had a fairly reputable architect put together the building, and apparently the second story is still identical to the way it was when it was built.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. We're now referencing the Offield building, right?
Correct, you got it.
Or the Ofield building.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty well Offield, unless my mom, wants to take something out in the.
Do you know if his office was upstairs or downstairs?
His office was upstairs, and if I understand correctly, in part of my digging, I heard conflicting reports. I also heard he had an office that was further south, not on Burlingame Avenue. But then I also heard as well that there was an office in what is one of the apartments now upstairs.
Yeah. So speaking of the apartments, that has a little bit of history too.
A little bit.
When your dad and mom got married back in 1972, that was where they lived.
Yeah.
In one of the apartments up there until they bought their first home and moved on.
Yep.
Now, what's really cool or ironic, I guess, is you and Carrie have been married since 2016? 17,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you guys live in the same apartment they lived in.
We do. It's a bit of a rite of passage in the family as it's kind of panning out.
It is.
Yeah, my aunts live there. My Aunt Martha, my Aunt Joni lived there. When my parents got married, they lived there. So yeah, there's.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So for the folks that don't know where the Offield building is and they can't read the little numbers on the doorway, what popular bakery is housed there right now?
Copenhagen Bakery.
Copenhagen Bakery.
Is now the full bottom floor is the Offield building. It used to be much smaller, gained some space when Morning Glory moved out, and it's been a bunch of businesses over the years.
Yeah. So first trivia question of the day, what was before Copenhagen?
I asked this, and I think I have to rely on memory here,
right?
Because I didn't get a straight answer. Was it a tool shop?
I thought it was a bakery. I thought it was Ingeborg's.
Was it Ingeborg's before
right.
Copenhagen? So I think at some point it was a hardware store.
It might have been
way back in the day. I'm thinking though.
And then Morning Glory was there for a while.
It was there for a bit,
and then the girls moved across the street and took their famous shop down to where it is now, at the end of Burlingame Avenue.
I heard your podcast with her recently.
Yeah, Paulette was great.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see here, Rye. We got to that trivia question. Archie, your grandfather.
Yeah.
Okay. Duffy's dad. Olive was Duffy's mother.
Correct.
Okay. Laura, who you guys called Mom, was your grandmother, married to Charlie Cook, who was a longtime fireman here in Burlingame.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So Archie had an insurance company or insurance business in the Offield building upstairs till your dad eventually took over the business.
Correct.
Right. And like I said, Charlie was a fireman, a retired fireman. And he used to like to joke that he beat the system. He was actually retired longer than he worked. So one of the rare ones, right?
Yeah, growing up in the Mission, that would have been a big deal to him during the Depression,
Yes. So what I think is also ironic is that your grandfather, Archie, went to Burlingame High, like all of you guys did. This is great stuff. But Laura, your mom's mother, right, or your grandmother, she went to Burlingame High too, but they didn't go at the same time, did they?
No, I didn't get the exact year she graduated, and I forget that. I do have what I think is his graduation year based on when he graduated from Stanford 4 years later. So I think, let's see here, I've got that down. I wrote it down. I'm not seeing it at the moment. But yeah, they were there roughly the same time.
Right, and they both played clarinet?
They both played clarinet, yeah, which I didn't know about at all until each of them had passed, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Were they in the band at all or anything like that?
They were both in the band, and they both hung on to their clarinets from the BHS band. So completely divergent lives. They went on to marry people from literally the opposite sides of the track. And then at some point after they each passed, the clarinets made their way to me. And so I now have in my possession two clarinets from BHS from completely different lives who both played in that band. So it's pretty cool.
So that had to be the late 20s?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's the case. No, wait.
30s?
Let's see. So hang on one second. So I'm sorry. I thought I had this information.
It's all right, Ryan.
Yeah.
It's all right.
We'll get to that in a minute.
I've
got that date.
Okay, so let's do this. Your father, Duffy, you, and your sister, Erin, all graduated from Burlingame High School.
Correct.
What were the years?
Let's see. Dad was 70.
Wrong.
Whoa.
67.
67. Sorry, I had the tie. I was born in 77, and it was 10 years prior.
Yeah.
My brain did a flip.
That's okay.
67.
Aaron?
Aaron was 99.
99. And yourself?
95.
Great. Do you know of any stories you'd like to share with your dad when he was at Burlingame High?
One that came to mind was, and I'm sure this is, possibly embellished, but I think it's got a ring of truth, is how my folks met was at a Hillsborough party, ostensibly, and they, as happens, the police were called if things get a little, loud.
Uh-huh.
And so, as happens when that happens, the teenagers scattered. And so everyone was in the backyard jumping over the fence to get away. And my mom didn't know my dad at the time, but there was a man, him, who decided to lower his shoulder and just knock down the fence to get away.
And that's what he did? He
just buried his shoulder into the fence, knocked down a few planks, and then my mom said, "Who was that? That's interesting." So that's how the story goes.
That was magical.
Yeah.
Your mother graduated from Mercy in 67, where you now teach.
Yes.
And her sister, Patty, graduated, I think, in 57.
You got it exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of coincidentals in here, or parallels or something.
Parallels,
but it's really cool. So I'm going to just tell you a quick story about your dad, tell our listeners a little bit about his senior year. He was voted most popular of his senior class.
Most popular.
And I could certainly see why. But a couple of things while he was at Burlingame High. He always liked to brag that he was the first inductee into the Burlingame Hall of Fame. And he was. However, he was part of the football team of about 50 guys that were inducted at the same time. And he doesn't always give the full story, but that's the story, okay? So he was an inductee, and that's for sure. And he played a little baseball, and he always liked to brag that his batting average was .500. Well, he was 1 for 2, okay? But that is 500, and that's in the record books.
Yep.
And there's just one other story I have to share because it actually changed the face of Babe Ruth League. I think he was about 13 years old when he started playing Babe Ruth League baseball. And he didn't play one inning of one game when he was 13. They played the 14 and 15-year-olds, and sort of happened to me too. But his father, Archie, your grandfather, Archie, got a little miffed, and through his connections did something about it, and they enacted the Babe Ruth League rule where everybody on the team plays at least one inning of one game throughout the season. You know what I mean? One inning, one game throughout the year. So that's the Duffy law, Duffy rule, which I always thought was pretty cool.
I did not know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It would make sense that Grandpa apparently, he had a very dry sense of humor, and I understand he could also throw a fit pretty effectively. I think there was a few people that he that kind of watched out for him a little.
He could get fired up. Yeah. So tell us about your time at Burlingame High.
I had a very positive experience. It was, defined by good people, good teachers, a relaxed atmosphere. It was very kind of run of the mill in a positive sense. So it's, I was a runner. We walked into the football meeting the day before, the day of the sports meetings, and me and my friend were just, you get blown over by the slightest of breezes.
Right.
And so we scooted on down to cross country.
Yeah. And that was for Coach Steve O'Brien.
Yep.
Nobody knows him as Steve O'Brien. They know him as Obi.
Obi. Yeah. He was assistant coach that year, and the following year is when he took over the full-time.
Yeah.
Or head coach.
And some favorite teachers?
Oh, gosh. Glenn Morgan, Linda McLaughlin, they stick out. There was an English teacher named Miss Cachot that was fantastic. Mr. K was the band guy over there, and I wasn't in band. I found music later, but he taught music history, music appreciation, whatever that was called, and I really remember loving that class. Right after lunch, come in, sit down, and he took you through the classical all the way through the Stones.
Yeah.
And there's just great conversations and just really good time in that class. But yeah, I was hard pressed to find a teacher I didn't pretty much like. Furpo was a great one. Costa, DiVincenzi, like the names just it's kind of easy to start talking about teachers that I love there.
Yeah, I know that Mrs. McLaughlin had a real liking for you. I think you were the only student that she invited to her wedding.
Two of us that were there. I don't know that we were the only two invited, but we were the two that were there.
Yeah.
Angelo Bresci went with me, and
that's right.
They got along really well too. Yeah.
Where'd you guys hang out?
So, I mean, there was, when I was a kid, I was thinking about this too. There was Electric Avenue. That was a heartbreaker when that closed over there. And I think it was Walden Books. Wasn't that Walden on that, up near where Cafe Central is? I don't know exactly which storefront it might have been, but was it Walden? Was that the,
Boy.
yeah. Oh, and then Wolmer's was closer, but Wolmer's
was the record shop.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, in record shop, I have to mention the Record Exchange. Oh, man. We spent a lot of time over there. A couple of release parties at midnight we snuck out to go see.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
And if you did Burlingame have closed campus or open campus?
Closed. Yeah, there's nooks and little spots where you could find to get some the time away from the main stuff, but it was a closed campus.
Did you ever go to Sam's Sandwiches across the street?
There was a big debate: Sam's or Ed's. Ed's has they've both closed down now. Ed's closed down a lot longer ago. That was on the first block of San Mateo Drive there, and so that was a debate. So I liked Sam's, loved Ed's. The other thing was the debate was Cumbre or Los Primos over on B Street. And so,
in San Mateo.
In San Mateo, yeah. So I was a Los Primos guy. That would be a fun kind of back and forth. Who would be where? But it was Cumbre or Primos.
You were a defector. You went over to San Mateo.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Back then, I think there was like 4 barber shops in Burlingame. There was Roy's on Lorton. There was Clyde's, which was next to Sam's Sandwiches, is by Christie's and all that. There was Jack's across the street from the high school on, I guess that's Oak Grove? No, is that Oak Grove? Yeah, that's Oak Grove.
He had 2 locations, yeah.
And then Matt, who was a Burlingame High graduate, bought it from Jack. Where'd you get your hair cut?
I was a Jack's guy.
You were a Jack's guy.
I was a Jack's
That's right.
guy.
Jack was down on Broadway for starters. Then he moved over to Oak Grove.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's funny. You were a Jack's guy.
Yeah. The nice thing about going to Jack's is you didn't have to worry about coming up with anything to say. He took care of the conversation.
He took care of the whole conversation. Yeah.
I say that in full respect and enjoyment.
Yeah.
And then Matt's ever since. Matt's as an adult.
So, Ryan, you have the great pleasure of teaching in the same town that you grew up in. You're at Mercy High. I mentioned earlier that you're going to be starting your 10th year at the all-girls Catholic high school.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your mom, like I said earlier, graduated in '67, Aunt Patty. When did this whole idea of becoming a teacher grab you?
I had no idea I was going to like teaching until I started substitute teaching up in Sacramento, and then down in the Bay Area, the Catholic schools after that. The kids' energy on the first day, there's nothing like it. You just got to stay ahead of it and work with the energy. And if you do, it's just nothing but fun.
What was your major up at Sac State?
English.
English.
I was just trying to get out of school. I didn't have any passion for it. When I finished my first requirements at CSM with English, I said, I'm never going to do an English class again. And I was so happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't care about learning. I didn't care about, I thought, college is where you went to get, a decent credit score and, 2.5 kids and, 2-car garage and all that.
Right.
But I had this one teacher. I had to get out of school with a poetry class and just took it randomly. And he changed absolutely everything. It's just all of a sudden it all made sense. The science, the spirit, the writing, the reading, it all just kind of came together. And I just had nothing but fun with working with that ever since that one class.
Did you stay at Sac State for your credential, or did you come down here?
No. Credential, I went over to Notre Dame. And so that was after I got the full-time job. That was under the agreement that I would get a credential as a follow-up.
Okay, so Mercy was not your first teaching job. There was something prior to that?
St. Veronica.
St. Veronica's.
Yep.
What do we know about St. Veronica's?
Let's see. It was a fantastic administration that brought me in. Kathy Lucchese, you might know her. The Burlingame bubble is small and well-connected. And I was given a great opportunity. And to be honest, I think they took me because they kind of a desperate need. They had like a 2-week time span to hire somebody.
It was tough. She came into a tough situation.
It was between me and one other person,
right.
and we all got along. And I had been subbing there for a long time, so I knew the culture, the routine, and I loved it.
How many years did you work there?
Just two.
Just two,
yeah.
And then the thing opened up at Mercy for you. Big opportunity.
Yep. Fantastic. It's I jumped right into AP Lit and freshmen, sophomores, and seniors in general, and it was a fantastic.
Yeah. How many teachers are at Mercy, give or take?
50 plus.
Okay.
Plus, yeah.
Out of that, how many are male?
I was trying to think about that. I didn't do the actual math, but I want to say between 30 and 40%.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges of being a man in an all-ladies, all-girls Catholic high school?
Yeah, I think rather than a challenge, I think it's a pretty cool opportunity. It's obviously extraordinarily important for the kids there to get an experience of a positive female empowering teacher. But there was an author I was hearing doing an interview like this, and she realized she had grown up in the Catholic system, and she was reflecting as she was an adult that with the nuns who had taught her that she had a modeling of a career women, people who knew how to put their career first, and she really learned from that. I think it's also important for the students to get a healthy example of what a well-adjusted male is like as well, to show them that, to have a male calling them out to get them more empowered as they go along. Society can complicate these things, and the classroom is a really great opportunity to really get a lot of praise from the male as well as the female to the students, saying, listen, I want your voice louder. I want you understanding how powerful you are as a person. And so to get that from a healthy male experience as well as a healthy female experience, I think it's a pretty cool opportunity to show them that, there is places where, we all want you stronger.
Yeah. What about, because the tuitions are pretty high.
Yeah.
What about pressure from parents?
Pressure from parents, I think the main thing is once you establish that you're there to empower the students, you get a lot of buy-in from the parents. And there's a million ways you can do that. All teachers have different styles, but when you're there because you love the job, and when you're there because, seeing the kids get the aha moment and, walk away from the class a little bit stronger than when they came in that day, I think that becomes readily apparent to a lot of parents. So is when you're passionate about it, I think that follows through. And the way the students talk about the teachers, that all kind of comes through.
Okay. You're an English teacher. Mm-hmm. Seniors, juniors?
Seniors all right now for a few years now.
Okay. And do you pick out the novels or the books that they're going to read?
Yeah. It's there's you can go with canon, or you can kind of break the canon rules sometimes to get some newer stuff in. But I've had a lot of support from the academic deans in the selection of books and what I've been asking the students to read.
Have you run into any book banning issues?
Not at Mercy at all. No, it's been fantastic. It's that is a topic that is alive and well, and I believe absolutely thoroughly and fully in keeping politics out of the classroom, as far as I don't want them to know what I think. If they know what I think, I'm not doing my job that day. Right. What I want them to do is become a stronger, more passionate thinker and reader, and however they apply it in their lives, I trust them to use their best ethics and morals. So having said that, there's absolutely a battle right now as far as what can and shouldn't or can't be read in some classrooms, and teachers are being put at risk, and I'm very proud of Mercy for having our backs whenever there's been anything that has been controversial. I've never taught anything that wasn't done for the right reasons for the students, and that's to help them find their voice and to be honest with themselves and their society. So I've had a really strong experience supporting that.
Natalie Brosnan,
Yeah.
Dr. Natalie Brosnan, the principal
Yes.
of Mercy High. How did you know her prior to you being hired at Mercy?
Well, I can answer that by a callback to something we've touched on already. Their parents met at a party my parents threw in the apartment I'm now living in. Natalie and
that would be Rick and Melanie.
Rick and Melanie, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so
Srigliano.
Yep, Rick and Melanie Srigliano grew up bought a house across the street from my folks, and I don't know what years everyone moved in, but it was around 1980 for everyone, give or take.
Yeah.
I think it was 80 for my family, and it must have been around there, maybe a little after for the Sriglianos. So she grew up a little younger than me. Her and her twin Nick, and her older brother sister Jillian, who also works at Mercy now, a fantastic colleague over there, and we all just kind of grew up getting along. It was a positive neighborhood. So yeah.
How unique that is, or whatever the word I'm looking for, searching for.
Natalie refers to it as the Burlingame bubble.
Yeah, that's part of that bubble, right? Ryan, the last 2 summers you've had a kind of an interesting 1-week job in Utah.
Yeah.
What was that about?
So AP grading happens for a week, and hundreds of teachers per actual test, per subject, descend on any given city. It's been Utah for a couple years in a row. It's been Kansas City. They've done it in Florida. Continue to do it. Depends on which test you're grading. You go to a different city. And you sit down and you grade a lot of essays every day for 7 days in a row.
And what's the purpose of this again?
So AP stands for Advanced Placement. If a student passes an AP test, they don't have to take that class in college. So it's they're starting with a leg up. I've known people who have started college as a sophomore. They got to skip freshman year. They have so many APs. It's rare, but that's the gist. So you can save some money, save some time if you can prove that you don't need to take it in college because you passed a high-level, college-level class in high school.
Has that been going on for a long time?
I forget. Well, I can tell you the AP exam has gone back at least to the late 70s, but not all schools offer it all the time. I'm trying to think of. There's an equivalent to it that's a different program, but the gist is that you get students who can are interested in a higher level of rigor. They go through more texts in a year. They do more writing. There's more essays. They get more feedback as a result. So it's a more challenging class.
So all of these essays are sent into a central location, I guess Utah, right?
Yeah.
And then they're funneled to you guys. What, are you sitting at a bunch of tables or what?
A whole bunch of tables. There's a lot of tables with 8 people per table, 8 graders, and then 1 table a leader. And they get scanned in and they get sent over, and you just sit down and you hammer out whatever level of pacing you're comfortable with that day. You don't rush it, but at the same time, you got to get through. It was there's 330,000 people took the test, and it's 3 essays per test. So it was over 1 million tests. That's just for lit alone, let alone the other classes.
So how many essays are you reading a day?
I don't know if they quite like us telling how many, but
Well, give me an approximate.
I can tell you, generally speaking, it's I was on the slower end, and I was at about 27 to 29 essays per hour. And
we're talking 8-hour day.
8-hour days, sometimes into the 9th hour. Yeah.
Were your eyes like shot?
Yeah, and that includes kids who didn't write the essay too, so it's a little less than that. Probably 23, 24 an hour for me, and I was on the middle to slow end. But yeah.
When you're reading these essays, how do you decipher? How do you know that they're not an artificial intelligence composition?
That's a good question. Most of them are handwritten. There is an option to do typing, and they're moving more towards typing, but they're highly controlled environments. The proctors are right in there with the room. It's the computers are locked down so they can only use this one program at a time, so they don't have access to it. So they would need something like a phone, but the proctors are pretty serious about not allowing extra materials in there. So even if your school's locked down, it's fair to say that pretty much all the schools are.
So you're pretty comfortable when you're reading these essays that they're legitimate essays.
Yeah, pretty much. And really, the writer's voices all come through the essay.
Your wife, Carrie.
Yeah.
Let's see, 2017, so that's about 6 years in now,
Coming
right?
up, yeah.
She also has the unique position of working in the same town that she lives in.
Yeah.
No bridges to cross, no nothing to where she's over at Studio One. And one of the ironic things about Studio One, it's one of the oldest businesses in Burlingame. It rates in the top 3, I think.
The Studio Shop, yeah.
Studio Shop.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're absolutely right about the longevity. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just amazing. So how about a little shout out to Carrie? You have a couple of dogs, right?
Carrie is doing great. She's working in the field that she trained in for college at Davis. She's doing very impressive high-end framing work. She gets to use her creative skills on some tools that are dangerous and powerful, and she loves it. It requires a ton of precision, and she's great at it. The dogs, she teaches me to teach them. I got 2 pups, and she's expert level dog trainer, which takes a lot of patience and intelligence. So yeah, she's doing great and couldn't be happier. Couldn't be more proud.
When does school start up again for Mercy?
Yeah.
When?
Mid-August. I don't have the date.
Comes fast, huh?
Yeah, you tend to know the last day better than the first day.
That's for sure. So as you begin to enter your 10th year in August, what's your plans going forward?
Figured it out. I'm going for my master's in teaching composition right now, which is a class geared around how to teach students who don't necessarily want to be English majors. So if you're a nurse, if you're a computer scientist, if you don't know what you want to be and you got to get through this writing class, it's how to teach that class, which works fantastic for seniors because we talked about AP Lit. That's students who are really kind of assertive with their their writing and their reading. But not all kids are. A lot of kids have other things going on. They don't want to have English be their thing, and that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
So the class is geared around how to get a kid successful who is not necessarily oriented or interested in English as being a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun to roll out. The program there is fantastic. I really, really enjoy it. Their ethos and mine is right in line.
At San Francisco State.
Yeah, correct.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And I think you're also fooling around in the driveway. I see something out in the driveway.
Yeah. So the 1969 Nova that has been in the family since it was new passed around a little here and there at the start of its life, but ended up with my dad for a lot of years. First car I drove when I got my license. It hadn't been moved since 2012. We found the last fill-up receipt in the glove box, and he always kept all his receipts right there. So it hasn't moved in a long time. And we got it turned over. Well, I should say the engine can start, but it hasn't yet. So every once in a while, we pull out some lawn chairs. Carrie's folks tend to come over and join us. They're fantastic. The neighbors who tend to know cars better than I do. I don't know cars at all, but this thing is like a Lego. Like it's plug in here, turn over there, and it's easy to work on. Straight six, 250, and we just bring out sandwiches, and everyone has a different level of expertise. Some electronics, some fuel, whatever it might be. So it hasn't started yet, but we've been working on it. It's a lot of fun.
You think you'll have it fired up before the end of the year?
I don't want to. I want to keep it as is, but no, I'm hoping, though. I think it's pretty close. We've Jim Steiner's a guy who's been involved recently. He's highly motivated. Rick Escobar is coming over, and these guys are just fantastic. And so with their help, I'm sure it's going to get turned over pretty soon. But it's so exciting. Every time you go to it, it doesn't quite yet. Like I want to keep the build up going. I don't know.
Yeah. So before we wrap this up, just a quick word about your mom. She's been working for an attorney or a group of attorneys, I guess, over in San Mateo for quite a long time. And she's going to continue. I think it's good for her.
Oh, yeah, definitely. She loves it.
And your sister Erin kind of bolted. She's running the payroll department over in San Mateo, right?
Yeah, just crushing
She couldn't be a Burlingameite. She had to go to San Mateo, but she lives just across the street from me with her little guy, Charlie.
Yep.
He's adorable.
Yeah, he's adorable. She's doing great. Everyone at the job loves her. She's cracking whips and holding it down, so it's a lot of fun.
Got a great position.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to wrap this up, but I just want to let our listeners know, and this is probably the toughest part of the podcast. Today's show is going to be dedicated to the loving memory of your dad, Duffy. We just lost him just a couple of years ago. And I miss him a lot. Thank you for being a guest today, Ryan.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very, very much.
I'd like to thank Ryan Offield for being my guest today on Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Thanks to Kathy and Shelby Lucchese for editing and producing, the great Ray Tyler for video. Original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded on Friday, June 30th, 2023. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this recording, and no part can be copied or replayed without the permission of the Burlingame Historical Society. So until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.